Today on PFDAuto, we're finishing up the transmission mount. Just got it back from welding. Looking pretty good. We're gonna do some cleaning up. Got some holes to drill. Can actually mount to the car. And then hopefully we can get started on some motor mounts. Got some little cheater plates I'd like to show you. So let's get started. First up, we need to see if our mount actually fits. We need to see if it hits these holes, it hits our angles, all that good stuff. Then we can start moving forward with getting these holes drilled so we can have it actually connected to the car. First problem I'm seeing is that my transmission jack is in the way. So we're going to get that moved forward and then we'll go from there. So I've got these mounts just loosely in here for right now. We're going to see if this mount actually connects up.
It was at this moment he knew. He f***ed up.
That is absolutely welded together backwards. All right, where my screw-ups never end, but my intention was to have this bar flip the other way. Pretty sure I just marked it wrong when I gave it to him. On the bonus side, my original thought was to do it this way. Have it all lined up here, which I think is still going to work. Might have to drill some new holes, but the bars still line up with the front holes. So I think we're going to be okay. So I grabbed a little rod. I managed to push these spots that are threaded down to the holes on the other side. I also drilled another hole in the mount. So now this should, for all intents and purposes, line up a little bit better. And no, because one is longer than the other. So now I've got one that's too long. I've got one that's too short, and they don't fit together because they needed to be on the other sides. So I drilled this hole in here for no reason at all. I moved those mounts for no reason at all. And now I still need to have him cut this back apart and put it back together. So there's that. It's been a few days since I recorded the earlier part of this video, and I got the mount back. I chopped it up, put my arms around, now it should fit in there. I did have him weld in these holes that I drilled previously because no telling if they're actually going to fit at this point. So today, we're going to drill some new holes for the rubber mounts. We're going to drill some holes for mounting into the car. We're going to move those sections that I moved down where it's actually going to bolt to. We're going to give this guy a paint job after we clean it up. Hopefully, we'll get it stuffed in the car. Well, it's always fun being underneath the car on my back, but that's what you got to do when you don't have a garage or lift or anything. So we are going to get you positioned here. Test fit this guy again. Hopefully lines up here and here, and all the way back here on both sides. Let's see if I can get you a little better there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these here make sure they're a little bit more tighter mounted than that. I'm going to put a little dab of grease on each one, see if we can't line up these holes. I guess I should measure, make sure this is correct, but I haven't touched it. So let's see how well this lines up before we do anything else. Because if this doesn't go in here, none of this matters. But look at that. That's about perfect. We could go a little wider on our spacing here, but we don't really need to do that. We might even just trim some of that off. Not 100% sure. But we've got plenty of room for our mounting. We've got plenty of gap between the edges here. I think we're good. So I just checked center on the output shaft, dead center in the tunnel. Guessing that's where we need to be. Check the engine. It's nice and level. So these should be at the angle that they need to be. Now, we're going to put a little dab of grease on them. Which should give us our mark of where we need to be. Got nowhere else to put that. I didn't think about that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to center this up in between left and right and lining up our mount hole. Which might be harder to do than I thought. And there's a bug crawling up my back. Not even sure our mount holes are the same distance apart. So if I do that, I'm way off. So I'm not going to worry about the mounting holes so much, because they are going to line up. What I am going to worry about is trying to find center in between pieces. Once I have those marks, I can kind of move them left or right to get them centered on the actual part. I just need to know where they need to be relatively. All right, did we get marks? We have marks here and there. I'll line these up a little bit more in the center. Didn't do too bad. Drill these out, and then we'll come back and take care of these two once we can slide this all the way up.
The next day.
Well, I hope this plastic doesn't make too much noise on the mic. But it rained last night and it's wet. So I'm laying on some painter's plastic. But today, these holes here, I need to locate them. I'm not quite sure how to do that. This is what I've come up with. I'm going to use some painter's tape. I'm going to tape across from one to the other. I'm going to make my little marks for the holes. And then I'm going to put the mount up. I'm going to cut around the tape. That way I can take those pieces, set them on the actual mount, and then I should know where these holes are. Now, worst comes to worst, I will do what I did for these holes, and I will make them oblong. I'll make some slots. But I'm hoping to avoid that. I would like these to be mounted pretty well. Might even add these third holes up here. I don't have any way to screw anything to them currently, but I'm sure I could figure that out, and it would make the mount a little more stable, I believe. I don't know if just these two are going to be good enough to keep the mount from bowing down when it's got the entire weight of the transmission on it now. If I had this one and this one, sure. But right now I'm working with these two. It is quarter plate. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to mark for these third holes anyways, just in case. So to start that, got my tape. Like I said, I want it to go around the arm, and the arm kind of sticks in because I built the mount and it's not 100% correct. So we'll put some tape across from here to here, and then probably just a piece up here where it actually sits nice. Mark our holes, mount it up, see what we get. All right, got the table out, got the mount here, got our template. Needs to go on somewhat like that. We'll have to figure out how exactly we're gonna do this. Then we'll drill some holes. So if we lay this out, this is basically like this. There's nothing saying that I can't drill the holes from the other side. It'll be a little harder to do. I'll have to get some sort of block out. Probably need to cut this shape. Well, as precise as I could cut it. I didn't do a great job keeping them together. So we'll just not worry about that. Now if we line up the ends of these on the side of the plate, that's where our hole should go. So if I'm right, that should be our holes there. I found a nice soggy 2x4 to hold this up. And instead of measuring, like I probably should, I'm just gonna look at the roundest part and make my little dot right in the middle there. That's where we're gonna drill the holes. This template sure does suck though. It did not come out very well. I even got a new drill bit. I don't know if it's big enough. But again, we're about to see. So I drilled 2 holes to start with. I'm going to go in and see if these line up at all. So I'll mount this back up, put it back up underneath there. Make sure these 2 holes line up with the holes that are there before I punch a bunch of extra speed holes in this guy. And also see if my bolts fit through or if I need a bigger drill bit. I'll let you know how it goes. Well, test fitted these 2 holes and they are very close. It's a tiny bit off. I can make the hole a tiny bit bigger. It's not going to be that big of a deal. The bolt fits barely through the hole, so I'm not too worried about that. I am going to go underneath and take some measurements of the distance between the centers on these additional holes. Because if they're getting more and more out of whack, it's going to be harder and harder to compensate for. And while, like I said, this is the first rendition of this, honestly, not super impressed with the way it looks. If it works, it'll get the engine mounted in the car. We'll probably make a second one. I have been working with the guy for the machine motor mounts, and maybe we do a machine trans mount too. Not sure yet. That's going to require getting the car there though and doing some 3D scanning and stuff that I just can't do here. So we're going to use the steel and we're going to keep on drilling holes. Well, 2 more holes down. Let's hope they all line up. Well, this cools down a little bit. I'm going to go back underneath the car and undo what I did the other day, thinking I could put this in backwards. When I get that done, bring the camera down there with me. You can see if this lines up at the same time that I do. Now the moment of truth. Do my holes line up? I don't know. My track record is not great with this. But we're gonna see right now. It seems like I've got 3 out of 4 here. I don't know if I just cross-threading this one in, or if it's just got some gunk in it. I don't know. We'll try to drive that one home and see what happens, but this one is not right. This one's gonna have to get wallered out a little bit. But we're getting real close to mounting a transmission here. Well, here we are. The moment of truth. Got a couple of bolts in here. Just the front ones for now. Mainly because I haven't figured out where that one's at. But I'm going to set you up to where you can see this gap over here that you can't see at all right now. We're going to see if this thing flexes when I take this transmission off. So there it is. What we're looking for is for this gap to stay just like this, nice and flush. All right, here we go. The moment of truth. And I can already tell that it don't like that. It's fully supported right now, but I've got gaps here and here. I was really hoping that that wasn't going to happen, which means our third hole's mandatory. So since this isn't supported correctly, obviously, flex down, can't have that. We don't want this thing bebopping down the road. I'm going to drill these additional holes. And then I might just push the piece that's in here that these are threaded into currently up to this hole and see if that fixes it. I'm guessing we want to do 2 bolts just to be good. We might be able to support the transmission just on this bolt here. This is pretty strong. I'm going to give it a shot. I don't have anything else to thread these into currently. But if I can move this up and we don't get any flex, then I know I'm on the right track. So let's do that. It's a lot more work than it should have been, but I've got these up and tight. I didn't bother to put these nuts on here right now because it's going to sit down onto this. But we're going to try taking the weight off of this again. Don't have bolts in here. Don't think we need them right now. This is going to tell us if we're going to get sag. That looks like a win. I've got no gap here. I've got no gap here. That transmission is sitting. So now I'm going to take this back apart. I'm going to pretty it up a little bit. Hit it with the flap disc, get rid of all this rust. Spray it with some black paint. And then when I figure out how I'm going to get these to mount, slide those pieces in there. This will be a done deal. I'm pretty excited about that.